Welcome back to Eye on the Money, and today we're discussing the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the pensions industry. And with me in studio is Ruth Njuguna, who's a senior manager consultancy and customer care, right, at Octagon Africa. Now, Ruth, before we went on break, you told us the numbers, you told us, the sort of impact that's been taken, you told us what people can do to access their pension. Mm-hmm. And also, earlier you mentioned the role the pension industry plays, for example, in the developing economies.
Yes.
For example, you mentioned that economies pretty much like ride on the pension industry to fund so many things. In fact, we saw the government most recently, stakeholders were saying the pensions industry should be mobilized to mitigate against economic implications to the Kenyan economy. One of the suggestions that was made was the 40% access from the pensions to support mortgages, access to mortgages.
Yes.
And the other one was the coupons on government securities to be suspended for the next 18 months.
Yes.
What sort of impact will this have, and what's your take on this?
Yes, those two proposals have already been, they are part of the national agenda currently within the Ministry of National Treasury. And it's laudable, first for the mortgage, because their intention is to help, especially the common mwananchi who is struggling with liquidity. Housing is part of the basic requirement for all of us. So if we can get something to have it put in place to support at least one of the basic needs, then food would be an easier way for us to manage personally. In terms of the interest rates, the interest on government securities, it is a good move because the government is trying to get as much liquidity as possible to manage the current pandemic at a national level. However, at a pension level, it also creates another crisis.
What's the crisis?
Reason being, once you freeze liquidity for pension, which is already struggling with liquidity because the asset valuation has been cut down. What happens to the people who are living within the 18 months? Where do you get money to pay them? The equities have gone down. So of course it's currently at almost -18, and government securities are the only assets that all of us are running to in terms of guarantee and the little income. All of us need the cash to be able to make ends meet. At a personal level and even at a pension level, that is the cash we need to reinvest and bridge the gap that we currently have. But maybe in terms of the changes that have been proposed by the government, I would want to use a very good case study on how it has effectively worked in other countries. And in this case, I would want to use Singapore. Singapore is one of the largest and most looked for in terms of economic growth in Asia. And they have a model where pension contributions are put into three categories, or rather three pillars. One is purely for housing. So as you contribute, first their contribution rates are 20%. In Kenya, on average, is about 20. Both a combination of the employer and what you're contributing. So in Singapore, they have what you call a central provident fund, where they contribute 20, which is equivalent to 40%. So they have seriously taken pension as something that helps the economy thrive. The first pillar, like I said, goes towards home, funding home requirements, help people get their housing needs. The second pillar goes towards income replacement, that's pension and related products. And the third pillar goes towards funding your medical needs in retirement. So they are very categorical in terms of what are the key areas that people struggle with at retirement. And it has worked very well because they have put proper mechanisms, proper structures to enable people work on that. And if you look at the statistics, globally, Singapore is one of the best economies, and it has the highest number of people with housing needs that have been catered for because the framework is proper. They have linked it to the needs, and in terms of management and cash flow, is properly managed. Unfortunately for us, we have a good agenda, but the question is, do we have the right framework? Are we able to consistently fulfill this objective? Because the mortgage regulations were introduced way back in 2009. The mechanism was not proper, people didn't benefit. Now it has come back, but we still don't have capacity to be able to discharge that particular, in order to meet the objective.
Right.
Yes.
So finally, Ruth, as we wrap up, it's undeniable the industry has been affected, as have been several other sectors of the economy. However, we don't know how far this COVID-19 pandemic is going to go, and we don't know when it's going to end. As such, we've seen businesses remodel their way of operations and just totally change how they're doing things in order to fit into the pandemic.
Yes.
Where lies the opportunity for the pensions industry? What's the way forward?
Very, very good question. Of course, these trends are expected to continue for the next, for the next few years, or even for the long term. So some of the trends that the regulator had already set in place to be able to manage that was we have what we call multi-employer schemes. So where you feel like you have cut down in size and your kitty has become small, or the number of people who are contributing are quite sizable, you can go into a larger, what we call a multi-employer umbrella fund, bring those people, those who cannot be able to contribute through the employer perspective, can do it on their own. Right. The Retirement Benefits Authority is currently driving in terms of financial awareness and inclusion to ensure that people understand the benefits of retirement and how it can be able to, assist. Further than that, there are incentives that are coming up. There are some employers who are saying, I cannot be able to give you the 10%, but if I give you 2%, if you put in 2%, I'll be able to match that into 4%. And consistently over time, if my financial sustainability is possible, I will up that to enable you move forward. Over and above that, we players in the market have come up with some tools for financial projection. We are able to analyze what is the sort of impact pension, your growth in pension is going to have on you in the next 10, 20, 30 years, which automatically helps you to plan in the next 5 years. If I am able to generate this amount of income, I can put it into pension, generate more funds. If I'm able to access it, I can get a home, I can get that money into business, and once I get into business, I am able to recoup that and take it back to a pension model. There are also tax incentives that have come in to just encourage us to continue building up the retirement fund. Recently, with the tax amendment, we've had the Income Tax Act 2020 reduced the corporate tax from 30% to 25% for income into pension schemes. That is a very large, incentive. There is also the VAT that has gone down from 16% to 14%. Right. So the expenses that the scheme incurs have largely been reduced. They are also at an individual level when members are leaving. We have had some encouragement or tax incentive on the tax bands, which ultimately means a member who is leaving pays less tax effectively. And so if you had any intention of saving, then you can use that saving on the tax incentive and put it back into the pension scheme. Yes.
Thank you very much for joining us on the show and providing us with such valuable insight on the pensions industry. I'm sure our viewers back home, if they had any questions, now they know. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show, and that's where we wrap it up today on Eye on the Money. However, you can keep the conversation going on our social media pages. In case you have any questions on the pensions industry, anything to do with your money, how you can get it, you can reach out to Octagon Africa. We'll have all that information for you. So you can send your feedback to our social media handles at Metropole TV KE on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on all our social media. Have a wonderful day.